roasts in Melbourne in particular have really taken off, and there's like a really, really, competitive roast trade happening at the minute, and everyone's trying to jump on the kind of bandwagon, but it's very easy to do, but it's very hard to do.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. In Australia, whenever we think of Irish hospitality, we generally think of pubs, but there's an operator among the key figures shaping how Irish hospitality and culture is experienced in Melbourne today. So what does that look like? James Gallagher is the co-owner of Zengal Hospitality Group, which includes venues such as Jimmy O'Neill's, Naughty Nancy's, Aunty Annie's, and new restaurant Enbarr. James, how are you?
Hey, Huck, how you going?
I'm good. That was a bit of a mouthful. You got quite a few interesting sounding venues there. How are things going?
A variance of all sorts, but going all right. Keeps it interesting, keeps you on your toes, so can't complain there. And everything is, every venue is different, and every kind of clientele is a little bit different, which is good too.
Not only do you have those venues, you also are running the St Kilda St Patrick's Day Festival, which is obviously every year on St Patrick's Day.
Yeah, every it's actually on the weekend before. St Patrick's Day clashes with our other musicians and events, but look, it's going from strength to strength every year. That's 7 years running as well. So, look, it's our favourite time of the year. It's like an Irish man's Christmas.
Well, tell us a little bit about the group, because you're kind of delivering something a bit different, or a glimpse into sort of Irish culture that perhaps not many people have experienced.
Yeah, so I think even when we started this group back 7 years ago, Jimmy O'Neill's was innovative in his own way. We tried to do things a little bit different and keep, we were, on the modern food trends, say back in Dublin, and and then kind of bring them over here, like the spice bags and things like that. But myself as Anita always wanted a restaurant, and kind of over time and over, I'd say, Irish people evolving, coming from Ireland, they've travelled the world now. The traditional Irish food for an Irish person now is obviously our mother's home cooking back in the day, but it's all changed. Like, they've all travelled, they've eaten in nice restaurants, and essentially we're trying to bring a little bit of that a little bit of an upmarket feel but to keep the traditions of Irish food as well. And get away from the kind of stereotypical kind of pub food that Irish people kind of known for, like when you travel the world. There's kind of restaurants out there like Cure in Singapore and Myrtle in London, and they are doing things a little bit different, and there's nothing like that in Melbourne. So that's what we're trying to achieve here, and it's doing something that we've always wanted to do as a group.
Tell us a little bit about, you got a few venues which I listed at the top of the show. Tell us a bit about each one and what makes them sort of different.
Yeah. So Naughty Nancy's is on Chapel Street. Again, it's very food orientated, a bit more cocktail kind of end type style. We do quite a few roasts, and this is kind of a little bit why we've gone down this route. Like on a Sunday is probably a big roast day. We've got some good chefs over there doing the work, but again, there's only so many people you can fit in a day, and it's kind of so that's kind of Naughty Nancy's. Jimmy O'Neill's then is it's our first baby, as you say. It's where we started off, and it's a little bit of a smaller venue. But we've had some amazing international acts come in, like Dermot Kennedy, Kingfisher, who actually are doing a few shows here at the minute, and like pop-up musicians from Ireland, but as well as on top of the food we've been modernising the menu there year on year, and basically taking what the trends are back in Ireland and putting it on there. So it's a little bit of a taste from home, but I mean, it's based in St Kilda, so it's kind of where the kind of, there's a big Irish community over there, and they kind of land and they want something they're familiar with, and that's what we saw out before they go out to the big bad world of Melbourne and try other stuff. So they kind of get a little bit of a taste from home. So that's what we've tried to encourage there. Then we shoot over to Aunty Annie's, which we opened last September. Aunty Annie's was formerly the Quiet Man, which has a 30-year history here in Melbourne for being an Irish pub, and it got a little bit weird near the end, but it was supposed to be up for apartments. So we jumped in and said, look, let's revive it, refresh it, and then we can create a restaurant in there, Enbarr as well. So we kind of split it in two type thing. The bar side of things is more of your community feel, a little bit older crowd, Irish expats, similar kind of rustic country home Irish cooking. Without too much of the modern flair, and it's like warming food. And then Enbarr then as well, we spoke about, it's a little bit of a modern twist on the Irish food, but keeping sticking to the pickling, the fermenting, the curing of the old, and modernising, and then obviously making the visual look good and taste good, so
tell us a little bit more about Enbarr, because that's really where you're pushing sort of something that people wouldn't necessarily have experienced in Australia in regards to Irish food.
And that's it. It's trying to get away from the stereotypical Irish restaurant, because I think a lot of some Irish pubs, they push the Irish food and they bounce out what is. It's not a bad product, you know it's going to work. People are going to go in there because with Melbourne and the demographic and stuff. But it's more of a it's just to make people realise that is another, the Irish are travelled, and there is another element of kind of style of food that Irish people like, and so that's kind of what it is. But it also in connecting with the history of the old kind of dishes, but it's more so it's your flavors, and kind of infusing and that kind of stuff. So it's a bit more of an elegant sit down kind of meal, and where you can relax and enjoy, and nice cocktail and glass of wine, and obviously a whiskey.
Well, tell us a bit about the name, and also you're sort of drawing on Irish mythology and folklore a little bit as well. Yeah. Can you tell us about that?
I'll give you a little bit of an insight into when we actually started renovation, and we were obviously we were kind of drumming around what we were going to do, and we're actually not far from Flemington Racecourse, so we kind of were looking around the theme of what similar something like that, and then we uncovered a staircase, and into the staircase there was etched carvings of horses that were actual in the staircase. And wow. Then we were it was there long before, and I had worked in the Aquarium previously, so I didn't even know it was there, so then we kind of got looking to go, we should actually look into the history of horses in Ireland, and then we came across the name Enbarr, which is the Irish word for horse. Right. Then we latched onto the whole Irish mythology and realised there's a whole connection with food in Ireland, and Irish like to tell a little bit of a story, would you believe that? So Enbarr was the horse of Niamh. She brought a warrior poet, Oisin, to a place called Tiernan. Now Tiernan was in another world, another realm, where probably you never grow old. So she brought him there, and he was there for 3 years, which was there for a few years, which felt like a minute. And then when he finally returned home, he realised that time flew at home, and he was 800. So when he landed back home, he pretty much died. Wow. So it's just the whole, but yeah, the whole name, the team, the feast, say, when the warriors come back into battle, that's the whole connection with the food, and we're, the whole mythology type of thing. That's where we're kind of aiming towards, and just realize the story doesn't end. If you there's story after story after story. So, it's really something that we've got stuck into, and a little bit nerdy probably after a while, and the funniest thing is it's not, you can make it up and tell someone a different story, and then the next minute, it's you pass on to somebody else, and the story has changed a little, and there's no way to prove it,
I want to explore what you're doing there at Enbarr and some of your other venues shortly, but take us back to when you were young. Whereabouts did you grow up, and was food a big part of your family?
Look, actually, it wasn't. I grew up in a place called Navan. It's about a half an hour north of Dublin, and it is. It was not really notorious for food as such. My dad was a guard, and my mother worked as a travel agent. But as things transpired, as we evolved, like, through the years, my mother ended up working in a hotel, my sister worked in a hotel. It was just, we all ended up in hospitality kind of type thing as we went along. But no, I was at school when I was at a loose end, and I wasn't too sure where I was going to go. I was this young lad beside me in the class goes, "Oh, do you want give us a hand in the hotel washing a few dishes, washing pots?" And I was like, "Oh, sure, I'll give it a go." And literally walked in and I was mesmerized with the whole kitchen operation, and it was a big hotel, known for weddings, functions, that kind of thing, the Yard Boyne, there in Melbourne. And couldn't fathom how they did it. And I was really intrigued by it, so I wasn't long getting out of that dish pit when I realized I could jump in and start cooking. So that was kind of where I started off at 16. And then, yeah, like I've spent time working around Ireland, different restaurants, Carlingford, big seafood town, Dundalk. And then obviously made my jump to Australia just when I finished college. And that was when really opened my eyes up to food in general.
What made you decide to come down to Australia?
Yeah, actually, had a job in Manhattan in New York, and it fell through last minute, and I was already kind of ready to go somewhere. And at that stage, at that stage, everyone was kind of going somewhere. Like, in Ireland, there was a lot of movement, and there still is. I decided, yeah, look, I'll go to Australia, and I just kind of landed here in Melbourne, and went from there. Worked in a few restaurants in the South Bank, and it was all. I was just mesmerised by the whole, like, the amount of, like, hospitality was thriving. Compared to Ireland, was kind of every menu was kind of the same before I left, but then I was only here for about a year, and I decided I'll go home. And when I left, I was like, I couldn't just hack I just have to get back to Australia. I have to go back to Melbourne. Actually, Melbourne, so much different restaurants and food and things like that I missed. So eventually spent a couple of years trying to get back here, and then and I did, and then I haven't looked back since.
Well, tell us about when you came back to Melbourne.
Yeah.
What did you do? Where did you get your foot in the door? And what were the sort of really important people and venues that you worked with?
The funny thing is, the place that got my foot in the door was the Quiet Man. So that's where I came back to, and I worked there for about 4 years as a chef. They would, at that stage, the Irish community were coming over here. They were coming out in droves. The pub was absolutely packed all day, every day. I met lots of my current friends there. After about 4 years as head chef, I became the venue manager. So I was kind of ran the kind of front of house side of things, and I kind of decided it's time to grow my wings, and so that's when I met Sunita. We ran a couple of street festivals here as well around Paddy's Day, so we had a couple of conversations in the background, and how we could go bigger and better, and that's essentially where Jimmy O'Neill's is born. So we kind of moved on and opened Jimmy O'Neill's in 2017, myself and herself. Grew Jimmy's, and from there. So it's funny just to go back full circle, and now, like, actually coming back and taking it over again, after my first foot in the door at the very start, so.
I just want to go back to when you were head chef and then moved into that new role of the whole venue.
Yeah.
Was that challenging for you, stepping out of the kitchen and taking on different responsibilities? What was it like?
Very challenging, very challenging. Like, I think my whole thing was, and I've always been driven in my career to want the next thing, and I was never happy. You want the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Didn't I actually initially wanted to have a restaurant at the start, and then I realized the margins. I was like, no, we need to have a pub. So that was and I was just was very intrigued with the whole, front of house, the wines, whiskies, that kind of stuff, and that I didn't, I just felt the kitchen was kind of not hindering, but I'd kind of done my dash a little bit, but it'll always help in my career no matter what. But the challenge definitely was going from, being in a kitchen run and be able to walk away, whereas front of house, you've got to be constantly smiling, constantly happy no matter what happens. That was probably the biggest challenge, as well as, like, the the admin side of things, just keeping on top of that when you've probably at bare minimum in the kitchen just doing menus and whatnot, whereas jumping from the house, you got pauses to learn, printers, staff like that, chefs can talk to chefs, but then when you come to come in front of the house, you've got to be people person all around and keep everyone happy as well as your customers. So that was probably the biggest challenge that I kind of found. And yeah, there was obviously some hurdles that you hit, but it's there's the stuff to make sure, and you go from that.
You've been part of Irish culture in Melbourne for quite a few years now. How has it evolved beyond that sort of pub only identity, and what have you actively done to do that?
Well, definitely. Look, we through the festival, we've connected throughout like Victoria, with other music festivals and things like that. But what I'm noticing now more so than the younger people that are coming over, they're not just coming over, but they're not so-called backpackers that out drinking every night and partying and whatever else. There's more of a health regime and a food, the food focus, and there's more meet-up groups, and it's not just meet at the pub, which was stereotypical of a backpacker. Going back, 10 years, now so they're more involved, they get out in the open, they go into like different events, and not just your mainstream kind of items. But like definitely the Irish culture has, I think sports as well, Gaelic has become, it was big back then, but now it's become absolutely, like it's become worldwide. For an amateur sport, it's amazing that what the work the guys do week in, week out, and that's been the big thing for the Irish abroad is the Gaelic. And we do a lot of the catering down at the home of the Gaelic Games in Keysborough. So we do the catering down there when they have events and stuff like that. So we've got a head stuck in everywhere basically. But you know what? It's because it's people we know, people we meet every day. It's people we meet in week in, week out. It's relationships you keep along the years, and it's what we do, it's what we love. But like definitely, it was definitely changing. The Irish community is changing over here, and it's for the better. I'm not like in such a way, and that's why I think, for this kind of restaurant like Enbarr and stuff like that, they're looking for that something a little bit different than they've been. That's kind of been on offer for years, and I think the stereotypical Irish pub of Melbourne of old is definitely changing. Like it's not the kind of dark, dingy wooden. Even pubs in Ireland, they're not like that anymore. They're modern, they're bright. The food is really fancy. There's cocktails are top notch. Staff are very well versed. Like this, it's definitely changed from the old stereotypical pub. And then hospitality has changed too. Like we can see the young people coming over, they're more interested in learning the wines and the cocktails, and than just pouring Guinness all day. So it's definitely evolving. You can see it. Don't know where it's going to end up, because I think back then you'd have hospitality as a career, and whereas now it's kind of a stepping stone, and it's not, it's as challenging as a venue operator and owner, trying to keep your service up, keep everything consistent, and keep it all kind of steady. And I think consistency is probably the one thing you need to survive, and that's probably currently the hardest challenge for any venue, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Take us back to that 2017 sort of time when you were trying to find a venue and create Jimmy O'Neill's. It's one thing to want your own venue and full of ideas and stuff, but what was the process like, and what was it like for you opening it up?
Look, we walked away a couple of times, it was a big jump. I had just had my daughter. She was only 6 months old.
Wow.
I didn't small bit of savings. Zenita, she's very driven. She really wants to get things put down on her perspective, and I think we both were like, well, we won't we? We both really wanted it. She's a musician also, so she had a good history of music and all the pubs, and she was very, very, very well networked in the venues and stuff like that. And with my cooking background, we kind of split a role type thing. So we both knew what we wanted from a venue perspective. We went down to St Kilda, and we walked and we looked at the venue and we talked about it, and we walked away, and we both went back to Ireland. Pretty much at the same time. We just had a planned holiday at that stage, and we both came back from the holiday, and like I was humming and hawing. My wife saying, "Should I give her a ring? Should I give her a call?" And just because I want to do it, and she was the exact same. So she called me back, and we called the landlord back, and he was still available. And yeah, we just went for it. Look, it was probably one of the hardest challenges you can ever do.
Yeah.
I would say like opening a venue is always challenging, but like it's because you do not know. I think what's harder about other venues is you know what's going to go wrong, whereas not knowing what's going to go wrong. Like we opened, you know, we were thinking we'll do small numbers. Like we did estimate what, like, forecast of what stock we needed, how many chefs, how many staff we needed. We were completely wrong. We got absolutely, because we created something that wasn't there before. There was like that, and a lot of people had tried, but were consistent and persistent, and we got there, and we eventually we stayed going, and we managed to keep steady the ship after a couple of months, and got through the busy period. Like we opened in November, so you're hitting straight into that summer period in St Kilda that I wasn't used to. I was used to go other side, and you got tourists and backpackers and holidaymakers, and it was just very. It was very just, it was just a full on long days, and, working on empty, and then you come in the next day and there's the queue at the door, So it's a good complaint, but it's also a very stressful time. But no, we got there in the end, and, I think our biggest, obviously, we opened in 2017, and 2 years later we committed to Naughty Nancy's.
Yep.
And then we think we had hit COVID. We opened with 5 days, and it's closed down. Yeah. So as a group, we've taken a couple of hits, but I mean, it just shows that we're persistent, and we keep thriving and go through it. So I mean, everyone else in Melbourne got the same, had went through the exact same position. But it's just we were just a very young group at the time, and we're kind of still here now. So kind of thank you, lucky stars.
Your venues have very unique names. Tell us about the names and where they've come from.
Right. Well, there you go. So my name was James, and then Zanita's name was O'Neill. So we're trying to think of a name, and you're also Googling to see if there's another name out there, and we go, what about Jimmy O'Neill's? And it was a pure fluke, because I didn't think it would to kick off like that. So that was kind of the first one.
Yeah.
And then we were kind of going through. I mean, I don't know if you know Chapel Street, but every pub down that street or bar down that street has a random name, and I was like, geez, we can't call it that because it sounds like that. And then we thought, do you know what, we'll call, say, Nancy's Jimmy's naughty sister, so so we just said, and not like, there's a few naughties in Irish kind of venues. We thought we'll have a little nod to the Irish without being Irish, so people know that we're Irish influenced, but not an Irish pub, so that's how we got Naughty Nancy's, and that's got traction. Initially it got some wrong attraction, obviously, because of the name, and after a while people just stepped over, like everything else. Once you become an institution, they kind of, you look past the name and think, oh, that's great, and then similar with the Aunty Annie's, we came in and we were looking around, and we went back into the history of what the venue, what was here, what was in the area, and we came across the name Annie, and she's looking after the rooms upstairs, and we were like, well, what about we call Aunty Annie's? Like the other's Aunty, and it's amazing. It's funny. It's got a different feedback from this one, because I'm pretty sure 80% of the people we talk to have an Aunty Annie. So it's relatable to a lot of people, and yeah, that's kind of stuck. So yeah, a little bit of a family tree going there. My wife has had enough of the family growing, though.
Before we talk about the food in the restaurant, Enbarr, tell us about the food that you're doing in the pubs. Is there a couple of dishes that sort of really stand out that you can tell us about?
Look, there's one that's definitely modernised. I don't know if you might have heard of it, a spice bag. It's really, really taken over the Irish kind of. It's actually not so much Irish. You can still see it in a lot of like Australian pubs too. Like it's basically just like a spice chip with a curry spice with capsicums, onions, fried chicken, and it's in a bag, and it was a dish that was kind of created back in Dublin from like a Chinese restaurant, and it just took off. And now there's, if you look at it, there's TikTokers and Instagrammers, and
Yeah.
they're queuing up to do it. And honestly, it's one of those dishes that you wouldn't eat it every day, but it's one that's actually been it's grown quicker than, and it's quicker than anywhere, and it's literally it's like, it's, I think the Australian people are really intrigued by it,
Yeah.
as well as, look, all the old favourites kind of work, your shepherd's pies, Guinness pies,
Yeah.
stews, bacon and cabbage, you know that. But one of the biggest things that most recent enough is the roast. Roasts in Melbourne in particular have really taken off, and there's like a really, really, competitive roast trade happening at the minute. And again, I think this is all driven by social media as well, and TikTok, and everyone's trying to jump on the kind of bandwagon, but it's very easy to do, but it's very hard to do as well at the same time, keep it consistent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's kind of one of the key things that we kind of do well in all our venues. And as well, just kind of keeping your chefs and keeping them happy as well as another thing. But yeah, I think that's generally kind of this kind of staples of our menu, and keeping each of the venue a little different, so they're not competing against each other.
Yeah.
And that's it. And with Enbarr as well, like traditional kind of Irish food is that kind of home cooked, homely kind of food. But we are some quiet nods to the the traditional dishes. Like we've got like a boxty. It's like a potato pancake. I tried to say, going back to 10 years or 15 years when I was in the trying to sell a boxy to younger people, they have no interest in what it is. But now young people, they're more cultural, looking to their history, they're looking to learn the language. So I think that now they're starting to see the old traditional kind of foods coming back again. Obviously infusing alcohol, like gin cured salmon, like there's a Drumshambo gin, which is from Leitrim back in Ireland, and infusing the salmon, it's one of our top sellers. That's like, we didn't think that would be it, but it's become one of our signature dishes and top sellers. We have some nice eye fillet with mushroom. We've got the biggest one is like the Oisin's Feast, like we spoke about earlier. It's like a Sunday roast, like a shared roast dish. Chicken and fond potato and heirloom carrots, and everything that'd be tasty in a cold winter's day in Melbourne. So
for people that haven't experienced Irish culture, what would you say to them? Like, what, beyond the symbolism that they kind of get with just an Irish pub, but how would you share the sort of nuances of the culture?
Irish people are very friendly, very chatty, very, very warm. I think if you haven't been to Ireland and you want to get a little taste, definitely come to Enbarr for a little taste, because you get a bit of a mix of like a restaurant, but a little taste of Ireland. But you get the hospitality. Hospitality is where it really is. I think it's kind of in us, and that's kind of why I think there's over 60 million passport holders around the world who just like to travel around and get stuck in everywhere. So yeah, it's definitely we're very very patriotic as well. We all love to stick together and support each other, and our sports teams, which are not the best at winning at, but no, we're very we're very supportive of all them. But I think but in general, like, you can just see it. We will settle in anywhere. We'll get on with anybody. Like Melbourne is such a warm and accepting place as well, and like Australia is too. I think everyone has an Irish friend, I'm pretty sure.
I think that might be true. Well, it's incredible what you're doing down there at the moment. What do you love about what you do?
Oh, look, I just love meeting the people. I love just, meeting the people. I obviously enjoy connecting with people, making people happy. I like it I like the day to day. Every day is different, I don't think I'll get into the norm of a Monday to Friday, mundane, sit in the office type thing. It's very much like what's happening today, what's happening. And that's our group as a whole, there's something happening next week and the week after it's something else, and, it never gets to the same thing over and over again, and, apart from obviously the usual nonsense of having a business, but like that's what I like about it, and it hasn't burned me out yet. So hopefully it can last another few more years.
Well, James, look forward to seeing where you take things from here. An absolute honour to have you on Deep in the Weeds today. So
thanks very much, Huck. Appreciate it. No, thanks for taking the time and to have a chat to me. So it's good.
Yep. Keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
No worries. Thanks, mate. Have a good one. Cheers. Bye bye.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Stay safe and be well.